On Sunday, France went to the polls for the first round of the ongoing legislative elections. And while the results broadly reflected the polls, with Le Pen's National Rally coming out on top and Macron's Ensemble coming a distant third, the high turnout and relatively even vote split means that we're now set for the most chaotic second round in the history of the Fifth Republic. So in this video, we're going to explain what happened on Sunday, why these results are utterly insane, and why the big question now is whether Macron and the left form an anti-Le Pen alliance. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. So, to understand quite how wild these results are, you need to know how these elections work. The elections happening now are for the National Assembly, the lower house of the French Parliament. There are 577 deputies in the Assembly, so 289 seats are required for a majority, and each deputy represents a single member constituency. Now, importantly, deputies are elected via a two-round system. If no candidate wins a majority of votes in the first round, the top two candidates, as well as anyone who received votes equivalent to at least 12.5% of registered voters, go through to the second round, where whoever gets the most votes wins. What happened on Sunday was the first round, and the second round is due this Sunday on July 7th. Now, in theory, 8 candidates could go through to the second round in a single constituency if there was 100% turnout and the vote was perfectly split between the 8 candidates, with 12.5% each. In practice, though, most of the time only 2 candidates go through to the second round, and 3 candidate runoffs, known in France as a triangulaire, are pretty rare. Now, this is for pretty obvious mathematical reasons. For the past few elections, turnout has hovered around 50%, which means that in the median constituency, 3 candidates all need to get above 25% of the vote for a triangulaire to occur, and votes are rarely this evenly distributed. On top of this, when 3 candidates do go through, the least well-placed candidate often steps aside to stop the vote from being split. To give you a sense of quite how rare these triangulaires are, in 2017 there was 1, and in 2022 there were only 8. The other thing you need to understand about this system is that it's traditionally benefited centrist parties, because even if they don't win in the first round, they generally do better in the second round, as voters from the parties that didn't make it through lend their votes to the centrists as their least unpopular option. For instance, if you're a right-wing voter whose party didn't make it through the second round, you might vote for the centrists in order to stop the left. And if you're a left-wing voter whose party didn't make it through, you also might vote for the centrists to stop the right. This is why in 2022, Macron's centrist coalition and Jean-Luc Mélenchon's left-wing alliance both won nearly exactly the same fraction of the popular vote in the first round, 25.8% and 25.7%, while in the second round, Macron's coalition won 39% of the votes and 245 seats, while the left won just 32% of the vote and 131 seats. However, on Sunday, both of these norms were shattered. According to the final results, the vote was relatively evenly split between Marine Le Pen's National Rally-led coalition, who won 33% of the vote, the left-wing New Popular Front coalition, who won 28% of the vote, and Macron's coalition, who won 21%. The National Rally came first in 51% of constituencies, the NFP came first in 26%, and Macron's coalition came first in just 10%. Furthermore, the National Rally won 38 seats outright in the first round, the NFP 32, and Macron's coalition won just 2. These results lay bare a glaring generational divide in French politics. According to exit polls, the NFP is by far and away the most popular party with 18 to 34-year-olds, while the National Rally are the most popular with 34 to 74-year-olds, and Macron's coalition are the most popular with the over 75s. While this is broadly in line with the pre-election polls, it's nonetheless both a phenomenal result for the National Rally and a pretty terrible result for Macron's coalition by historical standards. Not only is this the National Rally's highest vote share in a national election, but they actually won more votes than any party has received in the first round of either a presidential or legislative election. Conversely, it's Macron's worst performance ever, and it seriously calls into question his decision to call snap elections. On top of that, it seems like the polarizing nature of the election, the left's fear of the National Rally and the right's fear of the NFP, significantly boosted turnout, which came in at 67%, up nearly 20 points from 2022, and the highest figure since 1986. This combination of a three-way split in the vote and high turnout has given way to an unprecedented number of triangulaires, with 306 three-way runoffs and even 5 four-way runoffs. The vast majority of these triangulaires are between the National Rally, NFP, and Macron's coalition, but about 30 are between the National Rally, the NFP, and the Republicans, who won about 7% of the popular vote. This is utterly unprecedented, though. The previous record for triangulaires was 105 in 1997, which fell to just 79 after 26 candidates withdrew. And the last time there was a four-way runoff was way back in 1973. This also means that the final result depends more than ever on whether or not the various parties, and especially the NFP and Macron, can strike a deal to squeeze out the National Rally. In the immediate aftermath of the results, Jean-Luc Mélenchon came out and said that the NFP would pull out of any triangulaire where they're third place, vowing not a single vote for the National Rally. This means that the big question is whether Macron will return the favour and form a tactical voting coalition against the National Rally. But so far, they've been a bit vague on the issue. While the Prime Minister encouraged tactical voting in order to, quote, prevent the National Rally from having an absolute majority in the second round, Macron himself only called for voters to rally behind candidates who are, quote, clearly Republican and Democratic, which doesn't obviously include all of the NFP. And his finance minister said that Mélenchon's France Unbowed, one of the more radical parties in the NFP, are as dangerous as the National Rally. While a deal might be agreed by the time this video goes out, the lack of one at the time of writing is good news for Le Pen. And even if Macron and the NFP do come to some sort of agreement, it's not clear it will necessarily work. This is because many more right-leaning Macron voters might actually prefer the National Rally to the NFP, and many more anti-establishment NFP voters might actually prefer the National Rally to Macron. Whatever happens, this looks set to be the most chaotic election in perhaps France's modern history, and everything is very much up for grabs. If you want to learn more about the French and European elections, then we have articles discussing both topics in Too Long, our 60-page, high-quality magazine full of TLDR's very best journalism. This issue is focused on the UK election, diving deep into the campaign, the results, and how the winners plan to fix Britain. It's more than just Britain, though, with stories including the European parliamentary elections, the countries likely to join the EU next, the latest from Gaza, the rise of Milei, and of course the US election. Now, we've decided to make the magazine for two reasons. Firstly, it allows our journalists to write in more detail, diving deeper and ignoring algorithmic restrictions to produce the best work we can. And secondly, it's a good way for you to support TLDR and will help us to produce free YouTube videos as long as we can. If you're interested, then you can pick up a copy from our website, where we're selling 2 editions of the magazine. Firstly, there's the standard edition, and then there's the premium edition, which gets your name printed in the thank you section of the magazine, access to our behind the scenes podcast, and exclusive access to our election night live stream, where we'll be reacting to the exit poll with you as it happens. Oh, and by the way, we're going to be making an issue of Too Long every 4 months. So if you want to ensure that you never miss an issue, then you can subscribe, which gets you a 25% discount. If you have more questions, there's a full Q&A linked in the description, where you'll also find a link to our store. And while you're there, make sure you use the code ELECTIONWEEK to get an additional £2 off any purchase. Thanks so much for hearing me out, and if you are interested, please do pick up a copy, as it's a great way to support our journalism and help us to continue making free YouTube videos as long as we can.